America is home to 33 million small businesses, the beating heart of communities across the country.
And proof that the American dream is still alive.
This is a show about those dreamers and doers and the communities they serve.
Their real life stories.
Their struggles and successes.
Their grit, determination, and passion.
And the people who fight
to keep their American dream alive.
I'm Alfredo Ortiz.
I'm Elaine Parker.
And it's time for another episode of Main Street Matters,
America's small business megaphone.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone. I'm Elaine Parker, the president of the Job Creators Network Foundation.
And I'm Alfredo Ortiz, CEO of Job Creators Network.
And you can subscribe to the show at Salem Podcast Network or wherever you get your podcasts from. Well, Alfredo, today we're going to be joined by Gary Rabine. Gary's the founder and chairman of the Rabine Group, which owns 13 companies, including 5 paving companies that pave concrete and asphalt parking lots in all 50 states. Gary's a great American story, and he shares his stories and others like his on his own podcast, Ditch Digger CEO. So that should be fun. Gary's also a board member of Job Creators Network, and he also ran for governor of Illinois on the Republican side, but he did not win the nominee. He was not the nominee for the Republican in the midterm last year.
Yeah, that's right. I look forward to this conversation because, Gary has been such a staunch supporter of ours since the very beginning. In fact, I think he was part of the original idea along with Lee Habib and Bernie Marcus, in terms of originating and starting Job Creators Network. So I can't wait to talk to him.
Yeah, I mean, he's a very successful business owner. He's grown his business. I mean, really from bootstraps. I mean, he's done a fantastic job over the years, but he lives in a state that is just so difficult and anti-business, Illinois. I mean, I think we're going to get an earful from him about how Illinois runs because last week they announced the new CPI numbers. And it's so frustrating for me, Alfredo, because the president and the vice president and the entire administration, and even the media goes out cheering that inflation, somehow they're solving inflation, they're curing it, but inflation is still going up. It's just going up at a slower rate, and prices haven't come down. We're still up 16, 18, 20% in some cases.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why we need to really communicate to the public in terms of, the reality, because the narrative that spins from the White House and quite frankly is supported by the liberal media, they have, 85, 90% of the, total, what I would call, media share out there when you include social media and everything else. And so, quite frankly, if it weren't for basically a couple of, cable news networks and our fantastic conservative radio group, Salem Radio, which hosts our podcast as well, we wouldn't be able to get the message out. And I think the average American would be just hoodwinked by this administration. And so we just got to keep on, beating the drum and making sure that we're loud and very, vocal about what's really happening.
Yeah, I mean, consistently, our SBIQ poll shows that the biggest stressor, the number one concern for our small businesses is still inflation. And they're still being disproportionately hurt by high gas prices, high energy prices, wage inflation, the high cost of goods, not being able to pass on those increases to their customers. And now with such an aggressive stance from the Fed to try and curb and slow down inflation, we've got interest rates that are the highest we've seen in decades. And it's very painful for our small business owners, and they have great concern about getting access to credit.
Yeah, it really is. And, for our listeners out there that are joining us for the first time, Elaine, it might be good for you to talk about what the SBIQ poll is, given that it's a product of our foundation, which you run.
Yeah, so I love this poll because it's one of the only polls out there that polls small business owners nationally. And it really sets up a model of what's the small business owners look like. They're anywhere from employers, they have to have at least one employee, all the way up to 500, which is the definition of a small business owner. And it's national. There's businesses that are set up as brick and mortar. Some are just online. But again, they have to have at least one employee to be counted in the survey. And we call it the Small Business IQ, and we've developed an optimism index that measures how businesses are feeling. It's 7 questions, and it measures how they're feeling about their current situation, about their future sort of outlook on things, and then the economy overall. And we put that into an overall optimism index, and it's really been just flat for the most part for about the last year, which is really just signifies no growth, no growth for small businesses. But we're able to also gauge and ask them about their biggest concerns and have them rate them. And inflation for the last 2 years has been number one. And they're just their cost inputs overall. So it's a great measure. It's conducted by Scott Rasmussen, who was on with us last week to talk about it, and John McLaughlin, who will be on with us in a future episode. Both pollsters in their own right. They actually compete against each other. They've known each other for decades. Right. But it is the only poll out there that actually measures the small business sentiment.
Yeah, it's a great poll. And I know that you spend, every month, I think, briefing the Senate and the House on the data results from it. So I know it's very informative. I think what I've heard is very positive results and feedback from it. So this is definitely something that we want to be able to keep talking about in the future on our podcast.
Yeah, and one of the other things that's been interesting the last few months, as we ask small business owners, in spite of the fact that we have it's not record, actually, we have the lowest number we've had jobs available, open jobs. Our small business owners are putting a pause on hiring and increasing wages. And to me, that's their future. It's over the next 3 months. So their future outlook is much more cautious. They're not at a point where they're letting people go. And that's probably has to do with the labor shortage that we've dealt with for the last few years. But they're also not going to increase their wages, and they're not going to hire more.
Yeah, they're cutting back a little bit on the hours, actually. And, the owners are kind of starting to do a little bit more of the stuff that needs to get done by themselves. And, I think they're going to be like that in at least for the next few months, because there's a lot of conversation, are we going to have a recession? Did we avoid a recession? I mean, I still am calling for a recession, early next year. I kind of had expected it end of this year, but I would say early next year. The only thing that's really been keeping, I think, this economy afloat is the consumer. And I'm not going to say it's a resilient consumer, because, credit card, borrowing is at almost record highs, and delinquencies are at record highs. And so the consumer has basically been spending, but it's not a healthy spending, right? It's almost pretty much all been on credit, pretty much like a federal government has been. It's a spending spree, but it's always on credit. And so I don't think there's much more room for our consumers to borrow more. And they certainly have tapped out and depleted their savings accounts. It's almost at record lows. And so when you combine all that with what's happening with interest rates and the slowdown of the economy, and possibly an increase in inflation with price of fuel actually going up, which I think is actually going to happen, I think we're going to have a recession, and we'll wait and see. I hope I'm wrong, I guess.
I hope you are too, for sure. Yes, oil has gone up because gas prices are up again, about 30 cents. We're at 3.85 a gallon today. And when the Biden administration came in, we were at $2.39 a gallon. So in spite of the fact that we're down from the highs of last summer, when we actually were averaging $5 a gallon nationally, we're still up so high, and
Right.
it just kills me that they keep claiming victory when prices are so high for people. I frankly don't think we have to remind people. I think they know when they go to the grocery store. I think they're well aware of the fact that they're paying exorbitantly high prices for everything.
Yeah, grocery store at the pump, when they open up their electric bills or all their utility bills, and it's going to get worse, in the very near future here. And so, again, I just don't see the consumer buying into the Bidenomics parade that we've been seeing over the past couple months coming out of the White House. So, but we will see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. All right. Well, now it's time for our interview with Gary Rabine. So excited to have him on. Gary's expertise in entrepreneurship has allowed him to help found and lead the scaling of for-profit and nonprofit organizations that solve major problems, including the Rabine Group Foundation, Turning Point USA, and Job Creators Network. In the spring of 1981, Gary was a senior in high school trying to decide which way his future would go. While his friends were busy preparing for college, Gary was dreaming of starting a landscaping or paving business. With the experience he gained laboring and running heavy equipment for his dad's small business, he knew he could do it. One afternoon, in his school's cafeteria, surrounded by college-bound friends, Gary was asked what his college plans were. When he replied that he planned to save money and start a business, a smart-ass friend eagerly termed him a ditch digger. Loudly laughing, Gary's going to be a ditch digger. Gary harnessed this memory, and used it to motivate himself to walk his own path. 37 years later, Gary has grown Rabine Paving and many other businesses, which are now the Rabine Group of companies. And he also has his podcast, which is called Ditch Digger CEO. Gary, welcome to Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate being on.
Yeah, thanks, Gary.
So I know you're sweating it out in Florida like the rest of us around the country. It's been really hot. But I'd love to hear a little bit about your story. We already kind of read your bio at the top, but you have a great story in starting a business. You didn't go to college. You really pulled yourself up by your bootstraps. You had a vision. You've worked hard. You're a serial, what we call a serial entrepreneur. And your passion for this country is just contagious. So I really want to hear your story.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. You know what? I'm just a really blessed person. I started my business out of high school and in business out of high school, paving, seal coating and paving, and doing residential work for people in the neighborhood and in the town I lived in. Eventually it turned into a parking lot paving company in 10 years. And that parking lot paving company turned into a national company. And over the course of the last 40 years now, we've not only built the paving business to be one of the biggest in the country. We pave parking lots today in every state in the country for some of the biggest building owners in America. And not only has that business grown to be a great business, now run by my oldest son, my oldest daughter, and many others. We've spun off many companies along the way. So we've started, more than 35 companies. I don't know, it's 36, 37. I got to get that count straight, but it's over 35 companies that we've started from the beginning. And that happened early on. We'd start a little company when we were a $5 or $6 million company, and then eventually, as our customers needed, more services, and if we figured out there was a service that we could serve them well with, we would start it within our existing business and then eventually spin it out as a new company. We've done it over and over again, and we're getting better and better at it. It's taken us, probably over 30 years before we got to be very good at it when it comes to just new startups and mentoring the right leadership and all that. But all this stuff is just the example, of the American dream that I want to protect. And I got to tell you, up until 2000 and let's say 7, 8, I knew there were issues with big government regulating more. And then Obama came into office. Not that Bush was a saint when it came to the regulatory environment increasing, but Obama and Biden really accelerated regulations in many ways, and as well as our state of Illinois. So I saw, that there is a need as a leader in business to speak up, and I was blessed enough to meet Bernie Marcus and Brad Anderson and some others that started JCN, Job Creators Network, and was asked to join probably about 12 years ago now, I guess. And it's been a lot of fun to be part of something that's gotten so much done. As we see challenges in business, it's been a blast to be able to get in front of our leaders, you two on this podcast, and say, what are we gonna do about it? And you two coming up with solutions over and over and over again on how we fight stupid regulations that hurt small business and the American dream. And so I've been blessed to be part of Job Creators Network since pretty close to the beginning. And I've learned a lot. The fun thing is not only it's been fun to be engaged and to be part of the board, but then to see you guys really go to work has been really cool. So to be part of that's been a blessing. The things that we've gotten done in JCN to save jobs, in my opinion, in many ways, and to save taxes in many ways has been awesome, and bad regulation. So it's been a lot of fun. So for me, building a business and building a family first has been the most fun in my life. Building businesses probably second most fun. Being part of making a difference with organizations like this, probably the next coolest thing in my life. So I appreciate you guys. To fight the vaccine mandate and win at the Supreme Court, I was blessed to be part of that with you guys. It was a big win that I believe not only saved lives, in my opinion. Now, everyone doesn't agree with me on this, right? I believe it saved lives and health. But on top of that, we saved the supply chain. When I say that, the 85 million working Americans that didn't have to take a vaccine, I know that in my companies, at the time we had about 500 people in all of our companies, our little businesses, I was confident that it was 20 to 30% of my teammates would not have taken it. They would have gone somewhere else, okay? Now, people say, oh, you just hire more people. No. We treat our businesses like families, great families of teammates, and we care about our teammates, and they care about us. So when you lose 20, 30% of your workforce, it decimates your business. It ruins your ability to serve your customers, and therefore creates a log jam in service. So when we think about that, we think it was 20, 30% in our businesses. I think we looked at the numbers were more 15% overall in the country. But think about that, 85 million working Americans, 15%, 13, 14 million, whatever they would have been, right? Would have been out of the job market for a while, just decimating, in my opinion, the supply chain, increasing our inflation way more than what we even saw. So that was a great win, and it's fun to be part of that. So for me, I believe that if we're blessed, as I've been, to be able to start a business, grow a business, and in this great country, and live this great American dream, I believe that it's up to people like me to protect it. And there's no better organization than JCN to do that. So.
Well, thank you, Gary. Of course, that fight was such an important fight, like you mentioned, vaccine mandate. I've been doing this for about 10 years. So both you and Elaine have actually been here longer than I have. It has been interesting to see what's been happening since I came on board 10 years ago. It was bad under the Obama administration, but there seems to be a level of almost lawlessness. I was just reading just before you came on how the Biden administration and the Secretary of Education are encouraging basically colleges, for example, to continue the racial discrimination that was existing, even though the Supreme Court already ruled on that. I mean, this kind of lawlessness leads to complete anarchy, and we can't have that in this country. And whether it's a Republican or a Democrat president, I mean, the respect of law has to be there. And it's just unbelievable to see how it's all degrading before our very eyes. And so, I'm honored and blessed also to be able to lead this organization with great folks like yourself and Elaine and the team that we have. That I have to tell you, it's probably one of the most dedicated teams I've ever worked with. And I've worked with some great teams, in the consumer product goods world, Fortune 500 companies. But as you know, Gary, it's because I know you and I text and email a lot. at all hours of the night. I mean, people are working. We're working hard to try to fight for that American dream, and I'm also honored to be part of that, and have folks like yourself as part of our leadership.
Well, and I got to tell you, I'm very confident, and I know our mission going forward is to really raise partners and awareness in small business partners across America. And I'm very, very confident that most small business leaders that I know that grew something from nothing to small or nothing to large, in this great country, they're people that don't have a clock. They don't have a 40-hour week clock, right? They don't have an 8-hour a day clock. These are people that work constantly because they love what they do. They just love to serve people, their customers, right? And so I believe that in the future, as we raise awareness to every business, small business, mid-sized business, and large businesses, frankly, that care across our country, it's going to be so much fun as we use the big wins and the great stories that we've had for the last 12 years to get more people involved, invested in this organization, because I'm very confident that most small business owners and people that built something from nothing understand what big business, big corporate America, big government will do to our ability to create and live the American dream. It will go away if we take it lightly. I'm very confident that this great thing we call the American dream that I've been so blessed to be able to live will go away in the next 10 to 15 years if we allow craziness like we see in this administration we have today in America, and big corporate America that's right alongside them in really dictating what we should do in our regulatory environment, in our health environment, and vaccines and all the crazy things that they want to push, shove down our throats. So again, I'm excited to get hundreds of thousands of businesses, small and large across America, to understand what you guys do and the value you guys create, and to be on board so that we can have more eyes and ears out there doing what we do every day.
Now, Gary, I know you were involved at some point with NFIB or had membership with NFIB, U.S. Chamber, stuff like that, organizations like that. Why are they failing us? I mean, to be perfectly blunt here, because, I look around and I'm still waiting for the cavalry. I mean, we're out there, but we look around and we don't see many people behind us, trying to help out the situation.
Yeah. So what I've seen, yes, I've been part of NFIB for years. The Illinois State Chamber of Commerce, I was on the board there. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce, I've not been too involved, but I have friends that are, and I looked at that and just realized they're crazy woke, in my opinion, when I looked at it a few years ago. But when I look at what's happened to NFIB and these state chambers, they've all been bought off. They're now part of the gig. And when I say that, as bad regulation comes across the desks of the legislators, left and right, in our state of Illinois, boy, they just they give big corporate America and big unions a free ride to do whatever they want. So it's really turning out to be a big corporate America and big union association. When I look at NFIB, when I look at the state chambers and U.S. Chamber of Commerce, they're all bought by, in my opinion, by big government and right. Big business and big unions. So I mean, it's an ugly thing, but we need somebody to fight for small business, and they're not there anymore to do that.
Yeah, it's a real shame. Elaine, you asked a question of Gary about, success in Illinois. Obviously, Gary, Illinois, not exactly the most business-friendly state out there, and, let alone property taxes and all that. But somehow you did find success. You started 36 different companies. I know you've moved now to Florida. But how did you find even the ability to succeed in that state? Because that's phenomenal. I mean, quite frankly, everybody's fleeing pretty much Illinois because they've given up. But you did really succeed in that state. Tell our listeners how you pulled that off, how you did that.
Yeah, so believe me, of the 35 or 36 companies, there's been a lot of failures there. When I say failures, I've always had a goal of never claiming bankruptcy in anything I've ever done. And I have friends that have done what I've done, and oftentimes they claim bankruptcy because it's easy. It was a separate LLC, right? They can claim bankruptcy and not pay their vendors and go out of business without losing their shirts, right?
Right.
Well, I've never done that. So, but I've had probably, I should count this up too. I should get this number straight too, but I'm guessing I've had 7 or 8 businesses that I've shut the doors on. Other businesses I've sold to my partners that were in the business originally, or I sold to other companies that want to buy them. But my goal is to keep the businesses that are the strongest differentiating companies, and to keep the business that are world-class businesses, delivering world-class products and services. So we're in the paving business, the roofing business, doors and docks. These are like looked upon as kind of dirty, blue-collar businesses. We love these businesses. Number one, we love the people that are in these industries. That's where I came from, and the blue-collar world. And we love the industry, love labor. But I got to tell you, we use technology like nobody in the world to add value to our businesses. So we use 3D technology like nobody in the world when it comes to paving concrete parking lots. We use drones and artificial intelligence to assess and engineer, assess the condition and engineer pavements for the biggest pavement owners, parking lot owners in the world. And so, we constantly stay on top of our industry, and our goal is to be world-class with any business we have. And when we do that well, these are businesses I hold on to. And if I can't do that, if I can't differentiate strong enough, then I'll sell a business, shut the doors, lose money, and move on or whatever. But I got to tell you, if you can do it in Illinois, if you can do it in Illinois, you can do it anywhere. So what's happened is, I would say up until 2007 and 8, Illinois was as good as any state in the country to start and grow a business, up to 2007, 2008. After that time, their pensions have gotten out of control. Unions have dominated the state. Public sector unions specifically are ruining the state of Illinois. So what happened was taxes were average in 2007, 2008. In the country, we were right in the middle when it came to property taxes, when it came to income tax, when it came to almost every tax. We were pretty much average, right down the middle. And we were one of the best markets in the country, the very middle, the heart of the country. So Illinois was a great place to build business up until 2007, 2008. Then after the housing crash happened, most states got to be smarter and leaner. Next door in Indiana, Iowa, these states have gotten smarter. They've lowered their taxes to attract people and business to their states, okay? Illinois has done the opposite. They've raised taxes to be now combined tax are number 1 or 2 with California highest in the country, okay? So what have they done? And on top of that, their debt is the highest in America now. This is why I ran for governor. I ran for governor because I understand economics in business, and I understand economics in government. And I think that's important to have that background. Now, this is coming from a guy that barely made it through high school, by the way. But I got to tell you, I've learned so much in business and read a lot of books on business and then government and all that. There's people. I always look to the best minds in the world when I want to learn something, right? So when I wanted to learn about businesses I was in, I find the people that were the biggest and the best in my industry, and became friends with them anywhere in the world. I mean, I've got some friends who are the best engineers in the world in my industry, and they're not in America. They're in Germany and Israel and other places. In the same respect, when I knew that I wanted to know more about government, as I had challenges in building my business because of big government in Illinois, and let's say that 2010, 11, 12. Well, I guess what I wanted to learn more about government and economics of government. I looked at and read up on people like Art Laffer, on his history of leadership in American economics and world economics. I got to know Art and be friends with him. Then I met Steve Moore, right, who's been a blessing for JCN and a team member of ours at JCN. I got to know him through JCN. Steve Moore, just like Art Laffer, just a down-to-earth person that wants to do great things and save our country economically, right? Either way, when you get to know people like that, you get to understand how they think. Yeah. And I knew that for sure, if I could become the governor of Illinois, I would create a competitive environment where we bring jobs back to Illinois. I'd create a competitive environment where we bring families back to Illinois. Right. Create a safe environment. Wouldn't that be crazy? A safe environment where we respect the law and we hold people accountable for carjackings and robberies and the things that they don't today, right? And so either way, I believe that for me, I've been blessed to grow businesses using world-class ideas and innovation to where we could really compete anywhere in the world. But Illinois became more and more difficult, as you guys know. So some of my businesses I have in Texas now. I'm in Florida. I live in Florida now. I moved there full time. I go back home back to my old home, I should say, to be with my leaders in my business, because most of them are still out of Illinois. But it won't be like that 5 or 6 years from now. Unfortunately, my CEOs, not just my CEOs, but my CEOs are telling me that they and their teammates all are welcoming a new home. Okay. Yeah. I'll go back again. I'll go back to 2015 and beyond. If we said that we're going to start a new business somewhere else, a CEO or a leader might say, I'm going there for the opportunity. Okay. But to get our labor force, our project managers, our back office people to want to go, forget it. It's like pulling teeth. There's no way. They weren't leaving Illinois. Today, our labor force, our back office, there's no jobs in my business today where the majority of the people won't leave at a snap of a finger if they can be in a place like Tennessee or Florida or Texas. Okay. This is just a pure example of what bad business and government does, right? And this is what JCN has been so on top of, and I love it, because you guys are seeing the damage that dumb states are doing to not just businesses but homes and families, and you guys are constantly fighting for us, and we got to amp that fight up even bigger as they continue to destroy these states and these cities.
Gary, I love the kind of progression of what you've seen over the course of your career and your business. Is, you worked on your business, but you realized how you could give back to groups like us, but also you wanted to run for office and give back that way, because you understood how you could make a difference running for office. So there's that intersection between business and government that happens, I think, for people when they reach a certain point where they want to give back and they want to make a difference, and they understand what's holding other people back from being as successful. But when you look at a state like Illinois and the city of Chicago, I mean, why do the people of Illinois keep electing somebody who has bad policies for the state, like the current governor or the mayor of Chicago? I mean, you watch those kids, those thugs tearing the city apart, and he calls it a gathering. I mean, in what world were those pictures a gathering? I guess that's what we would call all the riots that happened in the summer of 2020, just a gathering. I mean, it's crazy, because they're literally reelecting their own pain every election season instead of looking for change. I just don't get it. I mean, can you just give me some insight into Illinois there?
Yeah. So number one, I believe there's corruption in voting in Illinois. It's really the granddaddy, Chicago especially, the granddaddy of voter fraud, in my opinion. Right. Some people will disagree with me. I'm telling you, I know many Chicago families that have been part of it and admit to be part of it. So I know it goes on. Now, to what extent does that mean 2% of the votes are misguided or fraudulent, right? Does it mean 5% or 10%? It's a big number, no matter what it is. It's not small, okay? And people should be prosecuted. They should be. People should be accountable for their actions. And if there's fraud going on, people should go to jail for that. Unfortunately, it won't happen in Chicago. It won't happen in Illinois, especially when you have people that are winning from it. J.B. Pritzker here's a billionaire that's never worked a day in his life. He's never built anything, never run anything, never led anybody. Okay, he wasn't even invited to work in the family business. Right. Here's a guy that's leading, one of the biggest budgets in the country in Illinois, and doing a terrible job of it. Here's a person that just passed a law that he was way behind. That actually made it okay for illegals to be police officers in the state. Okay, how stupid is that? I mean, we need people from the community to work and police in the community, right? So that they have the heart of the community first in mind. An illegal person policing in a community they know nothing about is unbelievably ridiculous. We're the first state to do that. Illinois has been the first to do many stupid things because they've got, in my opinion, they've got leaders that find it really easy to be paid off by doing bad things. Their campaigns, even the Republican side in Illinois, what I found was, 22 out of like 45 or 47, whatever it was, Republicans in the state legislature, okay, voted to put Amendment 1 on the ballot. Amendment 1 basically says Illinois, by the Constitution, Amendment 1 in the Constitution of Illinois, will always be a non-right to work state, okay? So meaning if there's unions present, especially public sector, you're going to join them, you're going to pay your dues, and they're going to have their way with the politicians and you. And so let's go back to another way that they win in Illinois and Chicago. We have a pension system that's out of control. So when you think about the hundreds of thousands of people that are part of the pension, right? These are good people, good hardworking people that are part of the pension, and many of them know that it's at risk and it's in trouble. But these people will not vote for even the conservatives that are part of these unions will not vote for Republicans because they're afraid that the gig will be up. And they're right. A smart person will reorganize that pension because right now it's over $700 billion of unfunded pension debt in the state of Illinois, more than any other state in America, more than California, New York, and Texas. States are 3 times or 2.5 to 3 times their size, right? So when you think about that, we have a pension crisis there that's out of control, and Pritzker just keeps, band-aiding over it. And oh, by the way, we just gave all public sector workers a 25% raise recently, okay? In a pension system that's busted and out of control. So either way, so what do we have? Think about those hundreds of thousands of union members that are part of that are good hardworking people there, but they have this pension, the pension they're part of. And then they have family members. So you think they can convince a couple family members to vote Democrat even if they're Republican? I think so. And so I think that's the biggest problem we have in the state of Illinois is everybody is part of the gig, and so many people are leaving. It's sickening. I'm going to give you an example of taxes in Illinois. I have a building in Schaumburg, Illinois. It's my headquarters. Okay, it won't be my headquarters for long, I don't think. Okay, I love the spot. I love the building. It's a great location, close to O'Hare Airport. Alfred, I think you guys have both been there, right?
Yeah.
That building would cost $35 million if you built it today. It's in great shape. It's a B office building because the environment's not high traffic and all that. But it's a great building. The $35 million built today. The building it might be worth $500,000 to $1.5 million. Okay, I bought it out of bankruptcy and I've got close to $10 million into it over the years. We keep it in beautiful shape. It might be worth $500,000 to $1.5 million. Do you know why? Because the taxes when I first bought that building out of bankruptcy they were about $100,000 a year. The taxes today are $1 million. They're $1 million is what they have assessed me at right now. Now we're fighting it, but in Cook County, Illinois, good luck winning not anymore. Okay, and so we're fighting it. We have a building that's worth less than the annual taxes, most likely.
That's crazy.
Right? That doesn't work in any economics, any economics school I've ever went to or heard anybody go to. I mean, it's a negative system that's getting worse and worse. And in the residential home market, it's very much similar. The average residential tax was somewhere around 1%, 2007, 2008. Today, their average is more like 2.5% to 3% on average. So if you own a house that's $500,000, expect to pay 15. In my neighborhood, it's 4%, so 20,000 on that $500,000 house a year in tax. Okay, so again, those numbers don't work, and so what happens? People are flooding out of the state of Illinois, unfortunately, and they're learning from their lessons, and they're going to states that treat them better. It's just like business, right? If we treat people really well in our businesses, we can expect our customers hopefully to continue to do business with us and maybe rave about our services, and we'll grow. If we're in a state that doesn't care about the taxpayers, it's a terrible, terrible business model, and that state will die, and that's what's happening across this great.
The businesses themselves, Gary, are also fleeing. I mean, there's a laundry list, as you know, of different companies, small, medium, and large, that are fleeing, going down to Florida, like yourself, and other places like Texas, and
Caterpillar,
Tennessee, Georgia. Yeah, Caterpillar's one. It really is crazy. I mean, I had a friend the other day was talking to me about his stay in Chicago. And when you look at the tax rate just at a hotel, it was something like downtown Chicago. I think it was a 12% tax for the state, 5.5% tax for the city. So you're already at 17. And then an accommodation fee, it added up to about over 20% tax on your hotel stay. I mean, how you can't even do that. It's ridiculous. And of course, like you said, a lot of it is not really a revenue issue. It's a spending issue. You just keep going and going and going. Probably one of the most, I think it's the largest now unfunded pension liability in the country.
It is, and we're the fifth or sixth largest state. Okay, so again, like I said before, we have $700 billion of pension debt, over $700 billion total and cumulative. The counties, the state, right, everything. And again, I studied this when I ran for governor, and I couldn't believe that. I found out that it was higher than California, higher than New York, and these aren't fiscally responsible states, and they're 2.5 to 3 times bigger, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
So that's how bad it is, and they keep covering it up. So either way, yeah, it's not going to change until we get somebody with courage in there to lead that state. And unfortunately, I envision it's not going to change until it totally crashes, and it's going to be a sad day when it does.
Yeah, that's too bad. One of the other companies you mentioned, Caterpillar, yourself. I think McDonald's closed all their stores in the city of Chicago. Am I right?
McDonald's is closing a bunch. Well, McDonald's is talking about moving their headquarters out of Chicago. Walmart is a lot of these people are customers of mine, and Walmart built a couple really nice stores downtown because the city wanted them there a few years back, and they did. Those stores have been just hammered by robbery, and they do nothing. They watch them decimate the shelves through these Walmart stores, and the little stores too. You get these little quick marts, and one individual owns those quick marts. They try to make $50,000 or $100,000 a year, and all of a sudden they lose $150,000 with 5 or 6 thugs smashing and grabbing and stealing all their stuff, right? While the police watch and babysit, they don't arrest these people, especially if they're only going out with a couple $1,000s worth of stuff. No reason to stop that. So as there's no accountability, we're going to have this anarchy that's going to continue to grow. And again, the values of properties in the city are also stupid, crazy low. I bought a little condo down there about 15 years ago. That little condo is worth less today than it was 15 years ago when I bought it. Okay, less by about 20% less. Now, inflation over that course of that 15 years has been, I don't know, the number, it's a big number. Is it 60, 70% inflation over the course of that time? And it's gone down in value. So if it went down 20%, inflation 60% over those years, those 15 years, let's just say 50%. It's gone down 70%, not 20%, right? And that's in a beautiful spot in right downtown Chicago, a beautiful little condo right in the middle of everything. But in the middle of everything where it was safe as can be when I bought it 15 years ago, it's not safe any longer. There's murders that happen right outside. It's in the Gold Coast, which was the best place to be in the city of Chicago. But it doesn't matter. You're not protected anywhere now because as the nicer cars are going to be in that area. So the carjackings are happening there more than anywhere else, and people are getting shot and killed there. And it's a craziness, right? It's craziness that we're okay with that. So again, we need, as small businesses, we're affected more than anybody else. And I see my friends in small business, they're just like I was for 20 years, 25 years. I was focused on my business and building business. I didn't have time to think about politics. I didn't have time to think about bad regulations as much as I did as I grew it. But I got to tell you, you guys do a great job representing small business. And if you were around 30 years ago and I knew about you, I would have joined then. We need small businesses to rest assured that you guys are fighting for us every day. And I want to get thousands to be invested as small dollars as partners in JCN in the future. And we do that, I believe we can change things because it's small business that's built this great American dream, from a couple hundred years ago. And it's small business now, in my opinion, has to save this American dream. And it's not going to be through the NFIB. It's not going to be through the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. They're all part of the gig, unfortunately. It's got to be through JCN.
Yeah, it's like we always say, small business is too big to fail in this country. We have to make sure that it succeeds. And, one thing, Gary and Elaine, that you were talking about is the Walmarts, for example, that were closing in downtown. That's a bummer. But they can afford to do it. They can actually do that because they have thousands of other Walmarts across the country. But imagine that small business owner who's worked their whole life, invested everything they had into their little storefront business, that because of crime or tax or whatever has to shut down. That's their entire livelihood, their entire future just gone kaput because this kind of leadership.
Exactly. And think about this, right? Walmart, you can say, whatever you want about them. They've been a great partner of ours as we've grown our business, giving us little jobs at first, challenging us to do bigger jobs and across the country. And really, I tell you, they've expected us to be the best of the best in order to do work for them. And we've grown with companies like Walmart across the country. And yet, when a Walmart leaves, you think, oh, it's just Walmart. Multi-billion, trillion-dollar company, whatever. They think no big deal, but it is a big deal when you think about the 600 to 800 employees that work there. Yeah, it is a big deal when you think about the hundreds of small businesses that supply that store and work for that store, right? I mean, it's a huge deal, way beyond just Walmart, corporate Walmart. It's the jobs, the livelihoods, and small businesses that they help along the way, right? By being a business that stays competitive and delivers great goods and services.
Yeah, no, that is for sure. I mean, the impact downhill is pretty severe, and so to your point, I mean, look, the reality is that we have to fight for free enterprise overall, whether it's for a small or medium or big business. Unfortunately, there's the smallest of small businesses that just don't have a lobbyist in DC sitting on K Street, that makes, a few $1 million a year, lobbying for them. I mean, these small businesses need that defense. And, fortunately, you're there, other leadership, that we have is there to fight for them. And, as well that we're fighting for them as well.
Absolutely. We're going to keep fighting for them, but we need them to join the fight with us in the future. I know we've got a great amount of small business across America that are part of Job Creators Network, but we need it to be huge. And I know we focused on it a little bit, but we focused on getting things done. You guys have been the SEAL team, in my opinion, of people fighting for small business. There's nobody like what you guys have done. I tell you two because you two are the leaders of this organization. But I got to tell you, now we need more support. We need more allies and partners lined up so that they can raise their hand and say, Elaine, have you seen this regulatory thing that's going to crush my real estate business, my manufacturing business, or right. Alfredo, have you seen this thing that's going to kill the auto industry if this continues, right? The small used car industry. Yeah. I mean, we need more voices across the country to speak up and to alert you, our team, of what to go after next. And then we need more funds to do that. I mean, we need to raise more capital so that we can fight 10 times stronger than we have in the last few years. And again, it's amazing what you guys have gotten done. I mean, the student loan bailouts, for us to win that fight, is nobody believed we'd win it, right? Nobody believed it. And we were the lawsuit that brought it to the Supreme Court. And then the Supreme Court ruled in the favor of the taxpayers of our country to not fund this crazy Biden $500 billion student loan bailout. We know that he's trying everything he can to get around it, and you guys are watching everything that's going on, so you can alert us more. And what do we do next as he tries to bamboozle the media and get around these things, right?
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true.
Yeah. Well, Gary, I'm glad you're on our team and not the other team. We need 25 Garys. We need 2,500 Garys. We need 25,000 of you.
And here's the thing: when you get I have friends of mine that are businesses the size of ours. When you add our businesses up, we're not really we're kind of a mid-size group of companies, or we're a mid-sized business if you add all our companies up, right? I have friends of mine that look at me and say, Gary, are you crazy? A lot of these rules, these regulations that are coming out, they're going to help you. They're going to stunt the little guy from nipping at your ankles and competing with you, right? You started with nothing, and most of my friends that I'm friends with have started stuff from nothing. Many of them are become mid-sized to big businesses, right? And I'll say, you selfish son of a gun. If you think that's okay, that the next person like you or I trying to start a business, it should be stunted and should not be able to compete with you. How crazy is that? how much does that affect or ruin the innovative environment we've had in America for 200 years, right? Yeah. If only slow moving ships can buy politicians and lobbyists, right, to get their way and ruin small businesses, how innovative of a country will America be in the future?
Right.
Not very. I mean, we like to stay small in our business. We have 13 companies. We have another one right now, 14th we're starting. I got to tell you, we don't want our business to get too big. We spin into other companies usually, and I have other leaders that will spin out, another brand of ours or another location, let's say, right? Because I believe that when business gets too big, they become immobile. They become a slow-moving ship. Compared to our businesses, we focus on innovation every day. We try to use the best technology in the world to serve our customers faster, better, higher quality, and it works really, really well. So I believe that small businesses start with an idea to solve a problem that other people have never solved before, right? And we can go into many stories of that. And my podcast, Ditch Digger CEO, does that, right? It talks about, rags to riches stories. And every one of these stories, it's somebody figured out a way to differentiate to serve their customers better. You ruin small businesses and you ruin that innovative atmosphere we have in America. So I so much believe that anybody that's had some success to build their American dream, small or large, needs to stand up and help fight, big corporate America, big governments, big, crazy, fat socialist government, in my opinion, right? To make sure that we protect the American dream for our future generations. And I'm going to do that the rest of my life. I don't care how big the Rabine Group of companies gets. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We're going to stand up against craziness that hurts the American dream always.
Thank you so much for that passion. Gary, where can listeners go to hear your podcast?
Yeah, so we're on all the podcast apps. I think I've got 85 episodes now and some great stories. Mine's the first one, of course. I did mine first. I've got Jimmy John's story. I've got the Netflix founder. We've got the Redbox founder, Athletico founder, many great companies that started with nothing. And Shelly's son, who's been a big part of our organization, JCN, Bright Star. So you can go to just Ditch Digger CEO, by Gary Rabine. Look it up in any podcast app. It's there. But again, these are stories that are so much fun because it's only American stories. These stories don't happen anywhere else in the world. I mean, they really don't. And so I want to keep telling these stories so that young people and people even my age and your age, right, can look at these and say, gosh, you know what? Hey, I'm 50 years old or I'm 60 years old. I got time and I got a lot of knowledge and sweat equity. I think I could start a business doing whatever, right? And believe me, you can. And only in America can you do this, but it won't be there if we don't continue to fight for it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone. We appreciate your point of view, and your passion, of course, shows through and through in everything you do. And for those of you listening, you can subscribe to the podcast at salempodcastnetwork.com or wherever you get your podcast from.